Our issue is mailing things this time of year from Montana, and the temperatures drop. Once they hit below 18 and 3/4, what I experience is people who receive their packages and things have broken and frozen. And so then I give them the choice, I'll send you the patches or things in a plastic vial, and then everybody decides the glass vials are the premium and they all want them because they can't have them. So anyway, it's just this way we don't have to deal with the iffy weather. So that's the only reason that I brought that up. So anyway, thank you everybody for coming. As you probably know, I'm Lynn, this is Paul. We are from Red Lodge, Montana. We started out in New Mexico. We came through Colorado, spent a few years, and ended up in Montana. So I always jokingly tell people we thought we'd go to the northern border and see if anybody was trying to cross in from Canada. But I think the Canadians are happy where they are. So the last place we lived that was metropolitan was Denver. We have a child in Denver, a child in Minneapolis, and a child in Roberts, Montana. And guess what won? We said we're going to go where it's little. And so I was telling Doug on the way in, the car gets parked, and we probably put on 40 miles a month.
That's small.
We walk everywhere.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
But the town is, 6 blocks for the downtown or 7, so.
Is that eastern Montana?
It's south of Billings. It's kind of central.
Oh, okay.
And we're on one of the scenic highways into Yellowstone. For those of you that worry that Yellowstone is going to blow, I'll just tell you it's 11 Grand Canyons large, so it has a lot of room.
That's great.
It has a lot of room to blow, and it wouldn't necessarily be anywhere anybody's planning. So, anyhow, Paul and I got started with the plasma energy solution from a friend of ours back east. And it was a chance conversation, and he just said, let me give you a website to go look up. You might find this interesting. And he's a very interesting man with a lot of different interests. I will speak about he and his wife a little later when I'm talking about some things. So Paul did. And the scientist who teaches this is Iranian. He's a man of the world. He's an Iranian, Jewish, married to a Belgian woman. He left Iran and went to school and college in London, and presently lives in Italy. So, and his name is M.T. Keshe, K-E-S-H-E. So what happened in the process of these weekly workshops, Paul was there about 4 hours each, and Paul was really having trouble understanding his accent. I'll get in and I'll just make notes for you from they're 4 hours long, and when you're typing back and forth from a YouTube onto the keyboard and back and forth, it turned into about 10 minutes. It would take me an hour. So I got to learn a lot of it in the process. So at one point he made a suggestion, and I think most of the people missed it, and it was, why don't you take some of the GANs that you're making, and Paul will tell you what the GANs are, and apply them, a combination, to the outside of a tub and see what you have and what happens with it. And so we did that. And, we kept then we kind of developed it more, and by then we were on a medical team teaching that had practitioners of the healing arts and dentists and veterinarians and doctors and therapists. And that was a 3-hour call once a week, so I ended up transcribing a lot of that. And we would say, well, we have this plasma energy station, and it would just kind of go. And so finally, when Mr. Kesh was teaching, it was 1 o'clock in the morning our time, so we rarely were on the live calls. And I got on one time, and I said, well, we have this plasma energy station, and as I described it, he went, where did you learn that? And I said, well, we learned it from you in the 112th workshop. And he kind of paused, and he said, oh, yeah, that's right. So things went on, and so what I'll do at this point is let Paul take over and tell you from a little bit about this plasma energy and, you know, what it is, where it comes from, and take it away.
I think maybe the easiest way to do this is to, if you guys have questions, just go ahead and ask me your questions. That way we can get more to the point of what you want to know, rather than to listen to me tell you something that you have no idea what I'm talking about. So go ahead.
I want to know how to explain it to somebody.
That's good.
How to do what?
Explain it.
The easiest way is to tell them to go to our website. Because all the explanations are on there.
Right.
And what's the website?
PlasmaEnergySolution.com.
And then where do you go from there? Because I've been on there several times and I'm not finding what you're saying I should be finding. What do I click on next after I get to that? Because I get the front page, but then I don't know where to go.
There's a menu at the top of the front page. Make sure you have your enlarged screen.
Okay.
So you're seeing the whole menu, and it'll say videos, for instance. And if you click on videos, then it'll say about plasma energy, or how to use your plasma energy station, or how to make plasma energy patches. There's facts, FAQs, frequently asked questions, and testimonials. And that's a good resource, just because the testimonials are coming from other people who are using the plasma energy and their experiences with it. And so you're hearing it in their words and not my words or Paul's words. The products page is, when you go to the shop page, if you click on the products, it'll tell you a little more about them. But we don't go into a lot of depth on the products because, for instance, when we made Detox Relief, there's over 150 energies in it. So it would get cumbersome to list them all. And I had somebody who said, well, I want to know which C60 oil you used in Life Force, which is our newest product. Well, what I told him is there are some things that are proprietary, and I'm not going to go into that because, for one thing, maybe a company is going to take offense at that and say, well, you took our, no, we took the plasma energy from your product, so we're just not going to go into that, okay? So, and that may have offended whoever asked me, but that's just the way it's going to be. So.
Yeah, in this packet, there's a thing you can print out. It's like 21 pages of fabulous stuff.
And that's off the website.
That's off the website.
Yeah, and if you don't mind passing that around,
Not at all.
that would be great. There are blogs that I've done, and they're not exactly every month, but there are quite a few. And if you go through and read the blogs, there's one I did about plasma energy, about the plasma energy station. There's a blog that I did about the hurricane in Dominica, and we'll talk about that later. So anyway, I kind of ran away with it, so it's your turn again.
So we're still taking questions. Go ahead.
Lynn used the term GANs, and you and I talked briefly about that, but I think it's just a name. Can you maybe tell us what
it means?
And what you do,
Yeah,
sort of?
GANS is an acronym for gas in atomic nano solid state. And where that comes from is like when we gather CO2, carbon dioxide, out of the air and bring it into the GANS water, and it collects on the bottom of a clear plastic tub in the form of a white cloudy substance. That's the gaseous state becoming the solid state. So we call it gas in atomic nanosolid state.
So you used CO2 as an example,
Right.
and there are some of your products where you would include that as one of the energies, is that?
That's correct. For instance, with the eye drops that we were talking about a while ago, it's mostly, here's a sample of it right here. There's just a tiny bit of water in the bottom, and the rest of this on top is oil. But the main ingredient in here is CO2, which is a gas in the air, but we have captured it into an atomic nano solid state and put it in this bottle. And it energizes the oil on top of it that you drip in your eyes. And there are all kinds of different GANSs. We make metals. I've made a GANS of gold, silver, copper, magnesium, and I think that's calcium. That's all the metals. And then we make a GANS, gas and atomic nano state, of herbs, like we'll take cannabis, for instance, and grind it all up in a little coffee grinder, coffee bean grinder, and put it in a jar with a substance that will break it down completely and make it monoatomic. That is, it separates all of the atoms from each other, so that you have free atoms floating around that are non-molecular. They don't come together and form molecules which build up and form amino acids and proteins and plants. They're all separate atoms swirling in this combination. And what we use is sodium hydroxide to break everything down. It's commonly known as lye. Okay, and you have to be real careful when using it, because you get it on you and it'll burn you.
You like lutefisk?
No, I don't.
Thank you, Paul. I didn't want to get too technical, but I thought it was at least worth understanding roughly what's going on.
Do you want to, this is a CO2,
Oh, here's a sample of
I'll take
CO2 GANs, and we can pass this around and people can look at it. But on the bottom, you can see this white stuff, and then when you shake it up, I don't want to shake it too much or it won't be separate. But see, that's what you see swirling there is the solid state of carbon dioxide.
It has quite a large field around it.
Right.
Interesting.
If you want to pass that
Now-
on down.
Now, when we take it from that stage into the stage where we have the vials, and this is just a small sample of different kinds of vials that we have. Well, then we'll take it, and this is actually something that gets used all the time. This has CO2 and zinc in it. And there's a vial in the bottom of this spray bottle. And so you just put the vial right in there and add a filtered or a distilled water to it. And then you've got the properties coming from the vial into the whole rest of the water.
Even though it's not mixed with the water?
Right.
Yeah, you never take the lids off the vials.
See, you're dealing with two different states here. One is matter, which is the water itself, and the other is a plasmatic field, which is not matter. It's just it's a plasmatic field of influence that charges the water and makes it useful without diminishing anything in the vial. The vial stays the same, it stays full. It doesn't use up. It's there for 100 years if you want it.
And
So
how do you know which metal works for what? Like for something else for healing, something for peace? Is it different or?
yeah, it's I'll say theoretically it's different. Gold now is used for what people are calling ascension, to elevate your soul. Silver is used for healing. Magnesium is used for joints and tendons. And copper is used for infections and viruses. Bacterial, virus, and fungal infections are susceptible to the copper GANS water. And we have a combination for colds, which is a combination of carbon dioxide and copper. And when I feel a cold coming on, a little sore throat or a tingling, a little cough or something, I'll get the jar of copper and carbon dioxide mix that I have sitting there and pour myself a cup full and drink it, and that cold, sore throat, whatever it is gone. The throat itch stops immediately and it never develops into a cold.
And that jar is one that you've put together like a clear plastic. Everything we use is clear glass or clear plastic. Now it can be colored, but you have to be able to see inside of it. Okay, and Paul learned this when he first started, and he had opaque colored, opaque tubs. And you're going, man, this just isn't working. I can't get my GANs to work. And finally we kind of go back in the notes, always use clear. Oh, that's the problem. So we had to go get clear tubs, and then it worked fine. And so the vial here, when you're talking about drinking it, you're just putting a vial in the bottom of your filtered water. There's a lot. We were going through.
Take a jar just like that,
Yeah.
right there,
Exactly.
and put a vial in the bottom of it with the combination copper, carbon dioxide, fill it with water, and drink the water
How long does it have to be there
overnight,
overnight?
12, 14 hours.
Now, once you drink it and start adding to it, you don't have to keep it overnight. Like if you drink this down about a third or take out about a third and add to it, what would you wait? An hour or so?
Yeah, wait an hour or so and let it all charge, and then
So that is again, for example, that jar with the carbon dioxide in the bottom.
right.
And what's this
But-
GANS right here?
That's
Rashmi, that is, but that's not what they're talking about. They're talking about using a vial.
Vial, I know. The
yeah. See,
vial-
there's a vial
the
in
vial
here.
also is a GANS, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Now this vial in here, all that has in it is water. This
That water?
water right here,
Oh,
but none of this.
not mixed with that.
Okay. So
It's
it's
charged water? Is that the way you describe it? It's
Changed.
charged?
Yeah.
yeah.
I just wanted to say that we don't have to make the GANs. They've already done it. And there is a cold and flu relief vial that you can get. So,
From you folks?
Yes.
Okay.
correct.
And what happens here? See, you just take this water, put it in a vial, and put it in your bottle that you're gonna, if you're gonna drink it or spray it on you or whatever you're gonna do with it, and you preserve what you worked so hard to make here in the bottom, all of the GANs. You don't use that up. All you're using up is the water.
Brilliant. I say it's brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is brilliant.
And then you can take just the water, fill another vial with just the water, give it to your neighbor next door, and say, when you get a cold, drop this in a jug of water, let it sit overnight, and start drinking it.
Oh, wow.
And all you've given him is a little vial full of water that has been charged in here that came from here. So you're multiplying your effect over many times for many different people by one simple little vial.
So what you told me yesterday, which I think is worth everybody hearing, Paul, is that if you make a recording of a recording of a recording, each recording is lower in quality.
Right.
And Paul is saying, if you make a vial from a vial from a vial, you don't lose anything.
That's right.
Now, do you shake it or succuss it or stir it every time you use it? That's one question. And the other question is, exactly how do you put your intention in the original station or jug of water? Do you stir it with something or with your finger or just intend into the water? So 2 questions.
I usually just take the jar and mix it like that. Okay, or turn it upside down and shake it.
Now, when
Every
you
time
use
you use
the
it-
eye drops, you'll do this and let
Yeah.
them separate.
And now before you use this, you need to set it down on a shelf somewhere and let it set for a couple hours and settle, so that all you use is the water. If you keep using it like this, you're going to use up all of your stuff that you work so hard to make, and it takes like 6 to 8 weeks to make this. The process takes a long time.
But as Maria was saying, you do that. Connie's question is more about what do we do with the energy station?
Because you do shake, you were blending it. I saw you blending the water before you drank it.
No,
No?
no,
Where did I see that?
I don't know.
I didn't see it.
No, you don't
Not
want to
the
use
GANS,
up
not
what's
the
in the
GANS
bottom.
Water, not the GANS water. Once you've made your station and you're drinking the station water,
Oh yeah,
Energized
yeah,
water.
I've seen
yeah,
you
yeah.
blend that before you drink it.
Right. There's no GANs in that. It's
Correct.
just the charged water.
Correct. But I think that's what Connie was asking.
Right, thank you for that clarification, and so you.
Oh, yeah, I
put your-
didn't get that from your question.
I didn't ask it very well. Now, so you put your statement of your intention on your big jug, for your.
Or on the water that you draw off.
Right, right, and so, do you keep infusing that with a new intention every time you drink it or use it?
Every time I drink it, yes. I say to myself, whatever I'm doing, this water will alleviate symptoms of diabetes, and I drink it. Or this water will assist with fluid elimination from my kidneys, and I drink it. You know, just a flat intention, a statement of intention of what I desire from it.
So then the question is, why do you need different GANs for different problems?
That's a very good question, because you should be able to do all of these things we're talking about without any of this, only with the power of your mind. The only problem is I haven't progressed that far yet. So I need something real world to hang on to as a crutch to get me up to the point where my soul is elevated enough to where I don't need any of this. All I need is my intention, but I'm not there yet.
You can't change water into wine yet?
No.
Shame on you.
Yes.
I have a question. I'm wondering, when you are touching a vial and you put it into the water, should you be wearing like a surgical glove? I was just thinking about germs underneath the fingernails and on the hands. If you're touching that and putting that in the water, is that an issue?
It has not been an issue. I wash my hands multiple times, but as a practicing surgeon and animal doctor, I've been in habit of washing my hands after I do anything. So I wash my hands a lot when I'm handling this stuff, and the only time I wear gloves is when I'm using lye, sodium hydroxide, because it gets on your skin and it'll burn. Other than that, I don't worry about it at all, because most of the combinations that we use are antiseptic. You know, most everything we use will eliminate bacteria and viruses.
Well, and a lot of the combinations, some of the very simple combinations are being used to clean up polluted rivers, polluted lakes. So there's a lot inherent in here that's already there for cleanup, so to speak. And you know, one thing you might tell them while you have the CO2 vial nearby was how you use it after you shower and why you use it that way.
May I just ask a question before you go there?
Mm-hmm.
Just not to belabor the point, but just so I'm clear on it. So you have a jar of GANS water, you let it settle, and then to extract the water from it without disturbing the GANS, you would have to either scoop it out or use a syringe or something of that nature. How
True.
do you...
I use a syringe. In fact, I use a little scoop sometimes too.
Okay.
You know, either way, as long as I try not to disturb the layer on the bottom,
Right.
and just take the water. Syringe is the easiest way.
What's this plasma energy station that everyone's talking about? What's exactly a station?
It's a clear plastic tub. It's about about this big. It holds probably 2 to 3 gallons of water, and it doesn't have to be that size. It can be 50 gallons or it can be a quart. And we take these vials,
It has
there's 16 of different vials, and tape them around the outside of the container.
That's what's in here.
That's what's in here, the 16 vials. And the plasmatic field of the contents of each of these vials goes into the water and charges the water with that plasmatic field. And then you don't have to worry about stirring the water or disturbing any of the GANs in it. You just reach in with a scoop or a syringe or your cup or anything and fill it up and drink it.
And it will have the energy from all the 16.
Yes.
But you still have to have an intent when you drink it or use it.
I don't know if you have to. I think at least for me it's important that I do that I put intention with it. Some people probably don't, but
we could also paste those outside like a clear, those iced tea jars, or
yes.
just tap it.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm going to pass this around because this shows 2 pictures of energy stations. One is a tub and one is a Walmart glass iced tea dispenser that has the vials around it. And yeah, I'll pass one this way. And Leah has one downstairs. And then what happens this time of year, if I think these are going to freeze and people are going to be unhappy when they get little bits of glass in their package, then I'm going to send patches, or I'm going to send plastic vials. And what we've done with the plastic vials, and I'll pass this around, you can see we've just combined 4 vials into one larger plastic vial. So instead of sending 16 vials, when we're dealing with freezing weather, we are dealing with 4 larger plastic vials. Now I tested them, I put them in the freezer, got them frozen solid, took them out, threw them on the floor, and they didn't break. So I figured that sufficed for the mail, except if they have an elephant in the back room. I didn't cover that test.
Go ahead.
I have another question. I have 2 friends that are in stage 4 cancer, and I have sent them patches to make their own water. Is there any danger with them drinking this water in stage 4?
No.
Oops.
No, I don't. I wouldn't think so.
No problem with the CO2 or the CH3 or anything like that?
There is a little CH3 in there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
For me, I would go ahead and drink it, but it'd probably be best in the strictest way of saying it, someone with cancer should not take CH3.
That's what I thought I read.
Okay, so
Can I clarify that with Morgan's friend?
yeah.
Okay. Morgan lives back east and bought a plasma energy station, and then she told her friend, you need to get one of these now. And so she ordered one, and she was scheduled for breast cancer surgery, but she started drinking the plasma water before that. And then there's a specific protocol where you can do some CO2 and zinc patches, right, Paul? That would go
Right.
post-surgical, okay? Or if there was a tumor, it could go on either side of the tumor. And what happened is her friend's healing was accelerated, and her doctor was kind of puzzled. He said, I've never seen anybody heal quite this fast. and you know, you're 2 weeks ahead of schedule, you're 3 weeks ahead of schedule. So it enhanced her healing process, and they made the patches specifically with the intention that they had the CO2 and the zinc, but she was drinking the station water, okay? And Morgan took this to her chiropractor, and he was really busy that day, but she said, would you just test this water real quick for me? And he had 3 commercial waters that he sold. So he got all 4 waters out and tested them for vitality, and his tested 0, and the plasma energy water tested 12 on whatever his measuring scale was. And then she said, well, would you tell me what the energy field of this water is? And however he did it, because I don't know him, he doesn't know me, he knew nothing about plasma energy. He said it's got a field of 36 feet. Well, that was useful for me because a couple years ago, I doused the energy fields, and first I took the vials around a tub, and I took my dowsing rods, and as I backed up, they opened. Okay, and I kept backing, and they didn't close till I got to 32 feet. Then I took a set of the pads made with the energy station water, and they were about this size, but one was thicker than the other. It's a pair, and I doused the energy fields. It was 33 feet. So then I took the next set of patches, which I call our to-go set, like if you were going to travel or take it to work, and it's this size, like a Post-it note. And I put them up, started backing up. It was 33 feet. It did not matter the size, and when you're used to things in the matter state, in the kitchen, a teaspoon is smaller than a cup, and a cup is smaller than a gallon. So I'm expecting the same kind of results, and that is not what we had. So the results were the same energy fields, no matter what size we were using. Yeah, Philea?
Okay, in this, I want to go back to the radical cell issue. If somebody has had surgeries and has had chemo, which changes energetically, changes the whole energy field of the body when you've gone through a lot of radiation and a lot of chemotherapy. And let's say this friend of mine has breast cancer and it's gone on from there, but the wound is open. And so I was wondering whether pads could be put on each side, or again, is that too dangerous because of the CH3?
No, you can make pads with just CO2 and zinc.
Okay, and that would be all right then?
And that's fine, and put one that's double thick on one side and one that's single thick on the other side.
Okay.
And that way you get a balancing effect. The greater balances the smaller, and it causes the fields to move and to balance. And they've actually got some breast cancer tumors to expel themselves using that method. And there's a series of pictures on one of the websites of, it shows the progress of the breast cancer starting from before any treatment with big red sore spot, through several different photographs of where the spot opened up and the tumor sloughed completely out and healed up.
Wow, that's great.
I'm sorry for the confusion, but the CH3 is not really in the water, right? You're just putting it outside the tub. So
Right.
How would that matter? Even if it's a cancer patient, you're just giving them charged water.
Yeah, well, the field goes into the water.
Right.
So you would want to take that CH3 vial, take it off of the tub, and put it somewhere else while you're drinking that plasma water for cancer.
patients.
Okay.
Again, the whole thing is, it's not physical,
It's not
it's
the
energetic
it's not the
CH3.
chemical, but
That's
energetic
right.
CH3.
It's energetic, but the CH3 is a molecule that is common in all sugars. Okay, dextrose, maltose, glucose, and it's an energy source, and so it vitalizes all the cells, including cancer cells.
So what I gave her is a problematic then, because it was made from my energy station and it had the CH3 vial on it.
That's debatable,
Okay,
but to be safe, she probably shouldn't use it.
okay, okay. So basically it would be better for me to make new pads and just do everything and take the CH3 off
Right,
in another jar. Okay.
right.
Okay.
Can
Yeah,
you talk
and-
about the first aid kit?
Yeah,
Because that
in fact,
is-
I was just pulling that up. Good show there. Okay, this is a chart that you can find on our website, and it's called the Plasmatic First Aid Chart. And it was developed especially around the time of the earthquake in Norcia, Italy. And what happened is the first responders, of course, were the Red Cross or something, but what happened is a lot of people in Europe that were working with the plasma energy sent pads or took pads that they made with their plasma energy waters and took them to the people in Italy to assist. And at this point now, the Kesh Foundation Italy is considered a first responder in situations like that in Italy. So what the first aid chart shows is they've got different combinations that you would use for different things. Use the GANs of CO2 for the nervous system, emotions, balances the neurosystem. CuO2, copper oxide, the lymph system, physicality, disinfection. CH3, the blood system, energy flow, energizing. ZNO, zinc, focus on the emotions as a cause of the disease. CaO, calcium for the bones, and use the same procedure to produce GANs of other materials like the food GANs. Now they also say amino acids, and somewhere in here they may say hemoglobin. That means the plasma energy, and Paul, you want to address, those are included in these vials as you
Right.
make them.
Right.
And I'll pass this around. So
Go.
in answer to Thalea's question, it's if she took the CO2 and the zinc, would she do like a 50-50 on the patch? I'll wait till she comes upstairs and repeat it for her. So half of the CO2 and half of the zinc.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're addressing both the emotion and the physical body part.
And usually the one of the main causative agents of cancers are emotions. And so that the zinc oxide addresses that portion. Now, someone was asking about this CO2 and zinc combination. That's what everybody uses for cancers, and I've had a bunch on my head because when I was a kid I used to run around all summer without a hat and get sunburned all the time. And I don't know if you guys can see this scar right here, but that was a skin cancer that I removed myself with a product called Black Salve. Yeah,
Oh,
and
we know that.
and then since then I've been using a spray. Every time I comb my hair, I just what's left of it, I just spray my head with this water, and I have had no more skin cancers. I had about 8 or 10 of them on top of my head. I finally got rid of all of them, but that's been about 3 years ago, and when I started using this, and I haven't had any more new ones come up at all.
And what is that again? I'm sorry.
CO2 and zinc.
Oh, thank you.
And her brother's the same way. He had his whole nose removed because it was all cancerous. And then they took a flap of skin from his forehead, turned it around, brought it down, and made him a new nose with plastic surgery. And so he's been spraying his head with this same stuff, and he hadn't had any new ones either. He went to the doctor here a while back, and that's the first time in 40 years that he hasn't had any new skin cancers.
Well, I notice you both have a lot of light in your face and very nice skin. So I was wondering, do you spray your face every day, both of you, and also drink the water as well?
Yes.
Yeah, and I add the water. I make my own coconut oil-based skin creams, and I'm a some cook, so it's some of this and some of that, and this essential oil. Maybe a little of that would be nice. I don't know if the recipe's ever the same each time, but I've gotten now to where I even stir in some plasma water with the oil and just stir it all up. And then you spray this on because your skin used to itch horribly.
Yeah. But being diabetic, we've got skin issues. And itchy skin, flaky skin. So when I get out of the shower, every day I take this spray bottle, and after I dry off, and I spray a fine mist over my whole body and let it air dry. And so I've been able to quit using skin lotion. So I don't use skin lotion anymore. I used to lather that stuff all over me because I itch so bad all over. Now I don't itch at all, and I just spray this water on and let it air dry, and then I get dressed, and it does the job. Yes.
So I'm a little confused, and maybe I need a little clarity here. So so the water that you create. Well, you've got this tub and you've got all of these bottles around, and the impression I got was then you take the water that is in the tub and then combine it with your intentions to solve a problem. And yet, going through this, it is saying for this condition use this kind of GANs, and for that condition use that kind of GANs. And I thought that was, so you had to formulate it. You had to become your own pharmacist, because I've got fungus. My daughter has ulcerative colitis, etc. So I need to know what to use. Let's say in her case, ulcerative colitis and Crohn's, etc. So how do I do that?
It's not that complicated. Can you explain about the little jars with one of the vials on the side or in it, and then the difference between that and the station? Because he's getting overwhelmed. It's not that hard.
Yeah, and what's happened is we started out with the plasma energy station, and that was more or less one size fits all, okay? So it was a general usage for everything. And with intention, you can specify your usages because you've got a lot of energies in it to work with. However, what we found was people that came and said, I have something specific and I don't want to reverse engineer out of the water station and depend on my own intending to make something happen. So what we did is I have what we call now the Plasma Energy Pantry, and this isn't even complete now, but we've got 27 things I think that are separate vials in addition to the 16 that go on the station. But here's what they are. They're like something for arthritis, okay? And then there's something for what we call anxiety in pets and in people. And then we did something we call Clear Mind. We did another one we call Clean Mouth. And Clean Mouth came about after I was watching a whole online series of specialists. And if you look, there's often things that'll go 7 days, and they'll run them 24 hours, and they'll have anywhere from 5 to 8 specialists on that day's programs. So I would get in and take notes and everything of what all these specialists were doing to address various things. Well, when we got to the one on dentistry, it was pretty drastic. If you have amalgam fillings, get them all out. If you have root canals, get rid of that one. If you have crowns, get rid of that. And I said to Paul, not everybody's going to be able to afford or want to do that. So what could we do instead? And that's where we formulated things that would be supportive of oral health, okay? And when they say that one tooth has enough tubules attached, in the root system to cover a tennis court, can you imagine trying to straighten out your whole body from that? And there's an acupuncture chart that lines up teeth and body systems and body organs. Well, Paul injured a tooth when he was a toddler and hit it on a corner of a table. And so he had a brown tooth in front for a long time, and it was finally repaired. That tooth is connected to kidney or pancreas.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
Well, because of having diabetes and kidney failure. So did he weaken that whole system from what happened in the tooth into his body because of the energy connection?
Acupuncture meridians go from the teeth all the way down.
All the way through the body.
organs.
Yeah. The acupuncture meridians are going from the teeth throughout the body system. And you're probably a good one to cover that, since Paul was one of the first veterinarians in the U.S. to study and use acupuncture in the 70s. And that's when people didn't know what it meant, and everybody's reaction at that point was, oh, it's all in your head. And he'd just look at him and say, I'm working on horses. And so now when we get to people who are like, oh, plasma energy is a bunch of nonsense, I just go, oh, we met you 40 years ago. You said it was all in our head.
And the wisdom teeth are connected to our immune system.
Yes.
Those all get yanked out and everybody's immune system.
Yeah, and everybody loses their wisdom teeth anymore.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had mine taken out when I was 17, I think.
Yeah, so you look at that and start looking at the systems, and I think every issue you've had with a molar has been connected to pancreas or kidneys.
Yeah.
And
So let me repeat my question. If
Sure.
I've got a situation with my wife, she's got a retina issue in the back, right, or corneal issue. My daughter has this internal whatever, that colitis, etc. I've got fungal issues, etc., etc. So, do we use different gas waters?
Yes.
That we call you and say this is what we need it for, and then you send us something.
They have
Yeah.
vials for all these specific.
You can do that, or it's on the website. And like
Or we
for-
get it from you.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
For instance, fungal issues.
Yeah.
Copper oxide and CO2. That takes care of like athlete's foot,
Yes.
nail fungus,
Yeah. Yeah.
these kind of things. the eye issue,
So, I think you mentioned CO
There's an eye
CO3
formula on that we have separately.
for her ret.
Oh,
Yeah.
C60 we were talking about.
Oh,
See
okay.
what?
your eye issue is retinal or corneal?
Cornea. It's
Corneal.
degenerative disease.
It's a,
And what do they call it?
Degenerative disease, so eventually you have to operate on your eyes and put the.
Degenerative, is that what you said?
yeah.
Like macular degeneration?
Right.
And I don't know whether it's macular
Yes.
degeneration. It is?
Macular's on the retina.
Not
No,
correct,
no,
This
it
is
is
on
bad
the
and
cornea.
cornea.
So they're
But they
talking a
said-
complete transplant of taking the cornea out or put another one in.
Okay.
Because of that corneal issue.
Okay, now,
So
Cat-
eventually you get
Just
blind,
one more
slowly,
reason.
slowly it
I
gets,
take it on the
like
side of
this
the jar.
morning, everything is blurry
Put
for
jar of
me.
water and then just-
Some days it's better
That's
and
right,
some
your
days
skin.
it's
So
not.
all these things can be done. with
Okay,
individual jar.
my issue with my eyes
Disease
was
specific.
Yes. That's what they
the
call it.
lens, which is right behind the cornea.
Excellent.
So that's
And
what
that
my
was a cataract,
Anxiety, memory.
okay,
That's skin.
which is now gone.
No, that is they did, and they did a diabetes study on my eyes, everything is fine, but that thing is slowly, slowly going, so if you can't do anything unless you have the operation on your eyes and put somebody's,
Somebody else's cornea or
Cornea.
something.
That's what they told me about my eye issue, and I had no surgery.
right.
Using what product?
Using the eye formula, it's carbon dioxide,
The eye formula.
copper,
Or this
zinc.
one,
You just
Okay.
buy it, put it on the side of a jar of water, or put it in, and then.
Yeah.
spray
He
it.
does it with olive oil.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
right, you told us about that
This,
formula.
and this is just a travel bottle. We have a larger bottle at home that's 2/3 of the eye formula water, and there's olive oil on top. Now, one thing I'll say about using olive oil is I had a few people that got back with me and said, boy, these drops really burn. What I didn't realize was that some olive oils have a pepper note. And I had to tell people,
Extra
Go.
virgin almost always does.
yeah, I had to say, go get something that's a milder olive oil, or use avocado oil, almond oil. Coconut oil, if it's fractionated, is okay, but if you use it out of the jar, if it gets cold, then you kind of have this little mess you're trying to,
It solidifies.
it solidifies. And so what Paul does, what we both do, is shake it up and leave it sitting on the counter, and then when it separates, we're going to take the dropper and just pull the oil off the top and use the oil in the eyes. Okay, and we're not using the water.
And what you would do in case of you get one of those vials, you just get a vial, you take it, set it right next to this, put a piece of clear plastic tape around it.
Oh,
Okay.
You had it inside that container of water.
But there's
Yeah.
another way to do it.
That's
Well,
another-
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Another way to
outside
do
of
it.
the jar.
Okay, then you put water in the container, 2/3 full, 1/3 olive oil, and then you can hold on to it and shake it up. Whereas if you have the vial inside of the jar, you're gonna shake it up and break something because the two glass surfaces hitting each other.
Okay, so.
Yeah.
Okay,
The
so you
other-
tape it on the outside and you just hold it, shake it up, set it down, let the water settle to the bottom, the oil goes to the top, and then you take a few drops of the oil, put it in your eyes.
Have you ever thought about making up that formula and just selling that to people?
No, that's.
We do that.
We
do that. Yeah,
that's the eye formula.
That is it, okay.
Uh-huh, yeah, and so you can actually take the eye formula and put it in a whole jar, like we put in these plastic water
Yeah, that's what
sprayers.
I was wondering.
Yeah, and then all you would do is take some of this, pour it into your eye vial, 2/3, and then add your oil to the
Okay.
top.
Okay.
And then this way you have your mother source, So a relative comes and says, well, I have dry eye. So you say, okay, well, let's give you some of my source here, you know, and that's how you can pass it on among your family and friends, okay? So you always want to take a vial and make a mother source of it. And so the mother source of this would actually be a bigger jar.
Each specific problem.
Yes. And so that's why I call it a pantry, because as you see what I passed around, it's not our complete set, but there's a lot of different things there. And one of the reasons we did all this, we started with the question of what would happen if there were a disaster where we are and there was no delivery. Well, what would happen if there's no delivery of food? What would happen if there's no delivery of medications? And you know, what if Walmart's shelves are empty? What if the local pharmacy, the shelves are empty? So what we did is we started first with food. And we said, well, we're going to experiment with this. So after the food was done, and it was a whole batch, what we did is I took for 21 days, I took a couple spoonfuls of everything we ate. And I froze it. And when we were all ready, okay, we've got a real variety here of what we're used to eating. What we did then is Paul put it all in the blender. It was quite an unappetizing looking batch of stuff. and then he started breaking it down with the caustic. And people get really upset. Well, did you rinse it well? Did you do this? You're never, ever going to drink that. It's only in a vial to give the energy of, okay, into your water. So once we had it all set up, we said, okay, well, time to experiment. So we decided we were going to try to go 10 days without food and just drink the water. And during the whole process, we lost a little bit of weight, and then it just stopped. It just balanced out. And after we got to 3 days, our Montana son invited us over for a family meal. And so we went and sat, and we're eating. So, gee, it's kind of nice to have a dish meal, isn't it? And he's going, what are you guys doing? So we sort of explained it, and the next day he shows up on our doorstep. All right, let's find out what you guys have going on here. So Paul explained it to him and what we're doing, and I said, well, you know, you use intention with this, and I said, are you hungry? And he said, well, yeah. And I said, well, look over the list of some of the things we have here. And he said, yeah, I think I'd like some of your popcorn. So I get him a glass of the station water, and he's drinking it, and he looks at me, he said, am I supposed to be able to taste popcorn? I said, well, no, not exactly. You're supposed to enjoy the benefits of having had the popcorn, the energy of it, okay? So then we went another 3 days, and for some reason we ended up with 3 meals over the 10 days. However, I think the third meal was, we're at the 10th day, we're going to have a meal now. I'll tell you what we miss the most, and that's the social aspect of food. Oh my gosh, you know, you're not preparing it, you're not touching it, you're not smelling it, you're not chewing it. We're very, very conditioned. We had plenty of energy. I was still sitting there typing for hours a day. We were still going for our walks. There was no deprivation as far as energy. What the deprivation was in our heads. Yeah, and it was, you know, so it's doable. Like I said, it's a social it's a big social conditioning that we have. Yes.
If a person is allergic to a food or does not suit their blood type, will the energy make a difference or not if it's in an energy form instead of an actual food form?
What's your intention?
That it be healthy for you.
Okay. And the body's going to use what
it wants.
It wants. And in the energy, in the plasma energy station, I think we calculated there were probably about 500 different energies, because we had probably just under 100 different minerals. We had herbs, we had homeopathics, we had amino acids, we had vitamins, we had the food GANs, then we had the basics like the plasma energy first aid vials. And so there's quite a variety in there. And what I've told people is you can reverse engineer out of your station if you want to, and if you wish to use your intention that way. Take a scoop of water, put it in a jar, and label that jar CO2. Take another scoop of water, put it in a jar, label that jar ZNO for the zinc, and so forth, of the things that we have in there. That's a bit of a stretch for quite a few people, and that's where a lot of the separate vials came into play, because it was just taking people a little faster than they were ready to go with that idea.
So how would you say your consciousness has changed individually in the past 4 years that you've been doing this? Have other people noticed things about you, or you noticed things about each other? Since this is all about energy and frequency and consciousness, then I would think that you've really developed quite a momentum from 4 years ago, the way you think and believe and consider what's possible or interact with other people.
And intentions.
Oh, definitely, that's the foremost. Yeah.
Well, I want to cover, go ahead and answer that. I want to find something on intention.
I would say, just for me, it's opened my eyes to new things, because being trained as a Western medical professional, this kind of stuff is hocus pocus, magic, you're crazy kind of stuff, you know. And that's the way I've been trained, and that's the way I've believed for years. But seeing this, all of this in action and what it has done for me personally, it's opened my eyes to be able to realize that there are a lot of things out there that I don't know, that I don't understand, and there's a lot of things I don't have a clue about that are still to be discovered, and my mind is now open and receptive rather than being in a closed Western medicine environment, which is in itself toxic.
Yeah, so you have moved so far beyond that paradigm in which you were trained and practiced, and then moved out of that you realize there's so much more that we have never been exposed to or taught, and how entrenched our conditioning is all throughout the society about the way we all have this agreed upon groupthink that keeps us very small and limited. Would you say that?
That's true.
You jumped out of the box and there was the universe.
Yeah, right.
Exactly. And he had 1 foot out of the box, having studied acupuncture and worked with that. And one thing we did with intention is we'll pour some in a glass and bless it, but part of our blessing says, and the energy from this is available to anyone in need of it anywhere in the world who is willing to use it.
Would you mind reading us your intention that you wrote up?
This is I'll read this intention. Paul and I were talking and this was not too long ago, and just, oh my gosh, you know, the town, the state, the country, the planet, everything's kind of in a mess. And what can 2 people do, you know? So I said, well, actually, there's a lot we can do when we start talking about it, because our plasma energy has gone out to all the states in this country, including Alaska and Hawaii. It's gone to New Zealand, it's gone to Australia, it's gone to Japan, it's gone to China, it's gone to Canada, it's gone to Costa Rica, it's gone to Mexico, it's gone to Sweden, Denmark, Norway, down into UK, Ireland, France, Germany, Austria, Belgium, Spain, so Malta. We haven't made inroads into Africa. It has gone to Thailand. So here's what we came up with. Because we put plasma energy in the little creek in our town. We go up the road a bit, out of town, and every year we just put a little plasma energy in the water. Well, our intention is that is carried from our creek to the Yellowstone River. Well, then it ends up in the Missouri River, and then it goes to the Mississippi River. But from there, it goes into the Gulf of Mexico. So somewhere, some little drops touch the Atlantic Ocean. Well, then they may make their way in the clouds or in the water across to the Indian Ocean, and then they may make it around to the Pacific Ocean. So what we said here is our intention and invitation. All plasma energy that originated from Lynn and Paul's efforts joins every other bit of plasma energy that originated from Lynn and Paul's efforts, wherever that plasma energy is in the world, on the land, in the waters of the rivers, lakes, and oceans, in the air, and in the clouds above. All that plasma energy bring Lynn and Paul's intention everywhere on, above, around, and below the surface of planet Earth, that all living beings are filled with love, peace, joy, freedom, and well-being, with the ethics and morality to support the love, peace, joy, freedom, and well-being of all living beings on planet Earth, including the living being, our home, planet Earth. All of like intentions are invited to join. So this sits on one of our plasma energy stations, and it's just, it's part of our intention with everything that leaves.
Could we have a copy of that?
Sure.
Could I make a copy?
Yeah, it's.
Could it be on your website? Or,
I think it is, but it would be fine. It would be fine to do a copy also. Thank you, Philea.
Thank you, Leah. Oh, I have a question on this, the hunger thing that you talked about, where you experimented for 10 days, etc. What are the implications of curing hunger in Africa, India, wherever?
Limitless. You can do it if people will believe it. They
right,
won't.
And that's the ultimate challenge, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's all perception.
You can go from now on without eating solid food. Just with this plasma energy station.
Wow.
Because I lost about 6 pounds initially when I first started using that, and then it leveled off, and I didn't lose any more weight, and I had just as much or more energy than before.
So you said you're diabetic, so
right.
You're taking insulin. You don't take insulin anymore?
I do, but my I take 2 types of insulin. One is regular insulin, and the other is long-acting insulin that I take at night to stretch me through the night.
Right.
And then the short-acting, the regular, is with each meal. You decide how many carbohydrates are in what you're eating, and you take enough insulin to cover that. So I used to take 34 units total per day. Now I'm down to about 16. Just recently, after Maria and Connie's gazing, my nighttime insulin requirement dropped from 6 units to 2.5. And 2.5 units, I've been told by physicians, is nothing.
Is nothing.
Okay, but that's all I require. And for a meal that used to require 9 units, now requires about 5 units. of regular. Okay,
And this is by just drinking the water.
Drinking the water, and I have to give some credit to Mariah's work and Connie's gazing. Because I've done them both, and I don't know what helped, but something helped.
And Dr. Billy too, Dr. Billy Martin.
And yeah, Billy Martin also.
Yeah.
Well, you all went out for a meal after the gazing, so
We said this is
you
dinner.
ate.
It's great.
Yeah.
But if you can do it for food, can you do it for dehydration too? So, like, if you don't have to eat, do you not have to drink either? I mean, it's a
No,
bit of a contradiction because you're drinking water, but not as much, perhaps.
I wouldn't go that far. I would say that you better continue to drink water.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, how much water do you have to drink in place of a meal?
Yeah, what we did was took like a 1 ounce little scoop and put it in a wine glass, filled it up with tap water,
Well, filtered water.
filtered water,
Right.
and that was our lunch.
Oh, yeah. So after you let it sit for a while, or what?
Well, I just is in that glass
Just
maybe
a wine
4 or
glass.
5 minutes.
Wow, amazing. Right.
Before we
Wine
drank
glass
it.
of water.
And that was our lunch. And
Wow.
you know, you go on from there with no hunger pangs, no headaches, no dizziness.
Amazing.
You're just as strong as you ever were, and so it's eye-opening
Yeah, more than that.
for a skeptic physician like me. It makes you shake your head and wonder what's happening here.
All right.
So why couldn't you put a few drops with a dropper in your shampoo and your makeup and
She does
everything
that.
that you use? So and we're putting it in our smoothie now, and just everything, and it just turns it into light.
Well, the other thing I do is I took all our sheets and towels and I added a cup of the station water to an extra rinse, and I just let it sit there. And after an hour or so, we'll talk about agitating. You know, when you finish out your cycle in the washing machine. Now, once you do it, it doesn't wear out. It doesn't expire, so you don't have to keep doing it. But what I've done is I've just put some in with the liquid soap that I use, and if I get something new, I may put a little extra in the rinse water. I had one woman who kept when you unpack the way we package the station, there's foam pads. And she kept it, and her husband was real skeptical. She said, I didn't even tell him. She's really funny. And she put those patches under his mattress, under the mattress pad. She didn't tell him, but he started sleeping better. And so I tell people, if there's an issue, you can make a pad, whatever you want to make it out of, and you could put, say, one under the mattress pad, and then maybe tape or attach one on top of your top sheet. So you're the filling of the taco. and you have the top and the bottom. You're in the taco shell of the plasma energy, so to speak.
Now, Louise has a follow-on to that, which is a great idea. Would you be willing to tell about the satin pillowcases? And
Oh yeah, I give satin pillowcases. I just soak the satin pillowcases and then dry them and give them. Or have them bring pillowcases.
Oh, wait a minute. So you dip the pillowcases in the plasma water
For about 3 hours, 2 to 3 hours.
for 3 hours.
Hang
Then
it up
you
to dry.
Hang it up to dry.
It's good for life.
Good for life.
so she said that would make a great Christmas present for all of her friends.
Yes.
Oh, fabulous! And it
Now-
doesn't mess up your hair.
This is one way that I can, when I make the paper towel patches now, this is station water. So I've just got a vial of the station water in here, okay? And then what I do is I put a stack of them on the table and I just dampen them all with this, okay? And then I hang them on plastic hangers to dry. And you want them to be totally, completely dry. If they're damp at all, they may get moldy after a month or so. You know, and then somebody's looking at these little black spots going, is this really going to help me? So what I did, I told you the man who told us about the plasma energy. Well, he and his wife got a settlement from the World Court against the U.S. government for $90 million.
Can you say that again?
The response of the U.S. government was that they came against him with charges for IRS of this or that or something, and they're both locked up in prison now. That's how you get paid back when the World Court gives you an award, a judgment. So anyway, I thought, well, how can I do this? How can I? So I took paper, just printer paper, and sprayed it all with station water, and they know what we're doing. And so then I wrote letters to them and said, I'm using my very special stationery. And so if I just said, whatever you have, I hope you will set it on your stationery. And I know some of it got through to him. I know some of the other letters along the way got confiscated. So I've held off for a while, and I just sent her some more. Well, we sent the paper patches abroad, and somebody in Ireland finally wrote and said, I've never gotten delivery of what we ordered. And I checked with the post office, and somebody there said, Customs is confiscating all kinds of things. So she said, what can we do? And I said, I'm going to write you a letter. Yes. And so I sprayed the paper, and I said, when you get this, you can take your paper and fold it up. Okay, now you can cut one part of it so that you've got a 3-to-1 ratio, and you've got your pair of pads. And so there was a little bit printed matter, and I said, ignore the printed matter, but we got to make it look like something, you know. So I think I had some kind of an article or two on there. And they got all their paper. Well, I hadn't heard back from them, and it had been many months. And her son wrote to me and said, I'm a therapist and a healer, and I want to tell you how much that water has helped me. And now I want to order something else from you. And could you please spray the paper and send it to me in the paper? So the people that are giving, they're so fussy about getting the paper patches instead of the vials. And here I am, I've got somebody in Ireland that said, please just spray the paper and send it to me. So it really does work on many mediums. And speaking of those mediums, let's see where I have put them. I take gloves. Oh, here we go. And what I finally did, because people have all kinds of different hand sizes, and if you ask them, are you small or medium? Well, you know, their medium hand might be somebody else's small hand or whatever. So these are inspector gloves, and I spray them the same way I was just describing and hang them up. And I have a combination that I use that's the station water, I think our arthritis, and our inflammation relief. And I hang them all up to dry, and then I send them. Well, I have some that I've worn for years because my hands get a little tired from typing, but I cut the fingertips off because I like to be able to feel. And so the other day, the woman who was coming to help with our cats while we're gone saw these gloves hanging there, and she said, oh, you've just done some gloves. She's aware of the plasma energy because her brother has a station. And so we were finished, and she said, I'd like to get a pair of gloves from you. I'd like to buy a pair. And I said, oh, no, here. And I gave her a pair, and then I went, oh, you're going to need a pair for work. I said, so let me give you 2 pair. There can be the one pair that goes brownish black and the pair you have at home under your pillow if your hands hurt at night. Just wear them there. And then I said, and if you cut off the fingertips, put them in a jar of water because they'll charge the water. You know, so, you know, you don't need to enhance the landfill wherever you live, even though I'm sure it gets enhanced unintentionally. I've done scarves, So if somebody had like I'll put it on if I'm typing a lot and I start, you know how you get sore, and I'll just put a scarf around my neck, and it just relieves it. And you know, I have my cut gloves and my scarf and just type away. And I mean, this could be worn on a head. It can be, you can spray a hat. You can put pads in a hat on either side. So there's just lots and lots of ways to do it. Thalea?
Lynn, I have a question. I've got, you know, we're sitting in Plasma Field here, and Connie, you're sitting right next to a big jar of it on that little stand that's underneath there. And I've been cat sitting, and the cat, she kind of takes care of the upstairs here while I'm cat sitting for a friend. And I go, I wonder where she's sleeping. Well, that chair that I have back there, I have that jar, and then there's another one up there, and she's sleeping right in that field. Because when I came up this morning, I thought, where is she? So I kind of just crept around, and I thought, my gosh, she's over there where all of this plasma
Where it all is.
But my question would be, I have buried all around my property the plasma field. Now, my question would be is, how deep into the ground? I didn't really know, so I only put it down about maybe 5 or 6 inches below the top of the. So, Paul, do you need to bury it further down? Does it need to be a foot, or can it be just like 6 inches, like I did below?
Just deep enough to where you can put an inch of dirt or a rock or something over the top of it. It doesn't need to be deep at all.
Could you use a pad?
Yeah, you can use a pad.
You could spray a
Well, I
rock.
did put mine down so that it's about 6 inches, but
That's fine.
I can feel, and I can see the field coming off
Yeah.
of that, even though it's buried. Can you have too much? Can you put them too close together? Or
No.
you can do as much as you kind of intuit to do then.
Right, it's a balancing effect. If there's too much, it's not going to hurt anything.
Oh, good.
So how far apart all around your yard or your house?
3 feet.
I have
Yeah,
it.
30
Just
feet.
Just like you said before.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I have
3
mine
feet.
house
Right,
every
yeah.
20 feet, actually, is what I did.
Can you
20, right.
spray
There's one other thing I wanted to show before we quit here. See these plastic rings around my knee? Oh, I got them on both knees because I've got arthritic knees, and they get sore as heck. I can hardly walk. And if I put these on and wear them for 3 or 4 days, I take them off at night, but just during the daytime, then I can go for another week or 10 days without using them and with no arthritic knee pain. Right now they've been sore, so I've put my knee rings back on. But that's plasma water in here. That's all it is just the water, and it gives me plenty of relief on these. Both of these knees are battered. They're just they're ruined, and it's kept me from having to get knee replacements.
Great.
So how did you get the plasma in there, and how did you seal it so it didn't leak out?
Well, there's a regular sealer for these. They're irrigation tubes, like for hydroponic gardening.
You're so amazing.
And they're just little clamp tubes that you fill the tube up. I fill the tube up with the plasma water with a syringe, and then just set the syringe down, and I've got one side, the plug in one side, and then I just bring them together and mash them together, and it's easy. That's all you need to do.
Is that just station water or something specific for the arthritis?
This is magnesium, zinc, carbon dioxide, Korean salt, and CH3, the sugar molecule.
Now, how did you come up with that? I mean,
Brilliant.
for average folks like us, and we say, I've got this.
He wants to be a pharmacist.
No, I don't want to be the pharmacist. No.
He majored in chemistry before he went to medical school.
Oh my God.
No. So you did
So
it
we
by
say,
dousing
okay,
or
can you do-
intuiting or how?
Well, I have a basic working knowledge of chemistry, okay? And then when I have questions like, what's the ratio of CO3 to magnesium? How much of which do I put in there? I pick up my dowsing rods and I ask the question, is it more than 50% magnesium? And it'll give me an answer. It'll either say yes or no, or stay the same. If it stays the same, then I ask, is the correct ratio 50-50? And if it moves to yes, then that's what I use. If it says, if I say, is the correct ratio more than 50% magnesium, and it moves to no, then I know that it's less than 50%, and I start working my way down. Is it 40%, 30%, until I get a yes? And then that's how I work out the formulations for what goes in all of the different vials.
Including these leg bands.
They
Yeah,
did
the
not
leg
teach
band.
dowsing in chemistry.
That is postgraduate.
So how did you get the bands above your knee?
You just,
I mean, do they stretch enough?
They
that-
come-
they,
Or do you just take them apart and put them back together?
no, they're flexible enough. What I did was I just measured how big around it is here,
Oh, right, yeah.
and then cut the tube to that length, and then put them together, and then I just slip them on and off like a pair of socks.
Right.
Could you not have soaked
The
a
knee
knee
bag,
pad,
yeah.
the stretchy kind? Ted uses one on one of his knees. Could you not have soaked that,
Yes,
dried it, and then wear it?
yes.
I was gonna ask that same
what
question, but I was going to add,
Elastic.
do you feel that's more effective than soaking the pad?
I've not tried soaking it.
Uh-huh.
I've only tried it this way, and this works for me, so I haven't changed it.
Okay.
Okay.
I have a question too. I have quite a bit of osteoarthritis in my body from being a professional dancer all my life. And so I soaked all my undergarments and my socks in the plasma water. Now that I have the arthritis formula, would I take everything that I've soaked in the other and then add, soak it just in the arthritis?
You can do that. Plus, take that vial and put it in a spray bottle, and wherever you're sore, spray your body
Okay.
and drink the water.
Okay, all right, so I wouldn't have to re-soak, I could just spray the body.
Yeah.
My toes are, my big toe joints are not in very good shape, and my hips from all the years of turning out not in the greatest of shape. But I do have to tell you that when I first started drinking the water, the very first taste, I couldn't even explain to you what I felt like when I took the first sip of that water. It was just like my whole body was like, wow, this is nurturing. No, it's more than nurturing. It's this and it's that. I couldn't even come up with the words. And for the first 10 days, it was just solid improvement. I wasn't hurting as much in my hips. My toe joints weren't hurting as much. And I carry a lot of tension in my shoulders, and my shoulders were relaxing. But then what happened after that 10 days, I noticed that I just kind of plateaued. So I'm still in that plateau space, but there's a lot of different vials that I don't have, and I think once I get some of those, then that will probably
And
make a difference.
I don't know if you do this or not, but another thing that helps and helps me is meditation.
Oh, I do that, absolutely. I meditate every day, and
Okay.
the other thing is I infuse my water every time I drink it. I mean, I have my own little mantra that I say every time I drink
Yeah.
it.
That's good.
But I know that my well-being has just gotten better. My energy is better. I've always had a lot of energy anyway, but as kind of the osteoarthritis was setting in and some of those things, I noticed that my energy wasn't as good as it used to be. But I will say that I have a lot more energy than what I did prior to the plasma water. And I use it for everything. I mean, everybody's coffee was plasma water, the tea was plasma water.
Good.
That's good.
Yeah.
I'd like to address infusing air. I did make it last night. I have it on my phone. I took it from the concentrator through the bottle about 3 times a loop with the plastic tubing, then attached it to the mask that's on the tubing and breathed it through the night. And that's the only reason I'm here. I can breathe today.
Oh, great.
Through the concentrator,
There's
the
one
lamp.
over there.
Yeah.
Now there is
It
something.
loops from the concentrator, 5 liter,
Okay.
So what did you do? Oh, I see
into
what
the
you did.
bottle,
Okay.
looped through there, comes out the bottle, attaches to the mask, and then breathed it through
Oh,
as I
great
slept last
darn.
night.
Now,
I can breathe and climb the stairs, and I couldn't do that yesterday.
Nice.
That's why I didn't come yesterday. So,
Phenomenal.
no, that's what you taught online.
right,
Yes,
there's
you only
a,
had it in and out, and I had
uh-huh.
all this tubing I didn't know what to do with, so I made some loops because
That's what we meant to show was
more
loops.
loops. Okay.
Yeah, fill the bottle with loops.
Okay, let's back up. You take 8 feet of, okay, yes, nice. You take 8 feet of just the smaller aquarium tubing, and you're going to coil it all up inside of a jar, okay? And you're going to leave both ends hanging out. Now, one end is going to be where the air comes in.
Oh,
The
right.
other end is going to be what you suck on
Oh,
for the air that goes in
I got it.
to your body. Your lungs are the direct communication with your brain. So when you're intaking air that way,
So,
and what you do, once your tubes are in your jar, you pour in whatever water it is you want. And it may be station water, it may be arthritis water, it may be clear mind water, it could be a combination of them. And you just pour them over the top of the tubing. No water goes inside the tubing. And so it changes the air that's coming through the tubing and enhances that air that you're going to take in. And so that's felt to be a very efficient, direct way for dealing with specific issues.
What about nervous system? Do you have anything specifically for the nervous system?
Zinc oxide is the one that everybody uses for nervous conditions, anxiety, tremors, things like that.
Yeah, so my
Right.
And Connie, to answer the second part to your question, we have placed the complete plasma pantry and the plasma energy stations around with other people.
Oh, good idea.
And so there's some scattered about the country, and it's just our intention is that we have such a plasmatic field over our house that it keeps the bugs. And a friend of mine, when I mentioned that, she said, "You know, I haven't had any mice lately." Well, and John down in Florida said, well, the wolf spiders have quit coming, and they would come in and eat the bugs, and the little spiders that spin the cobwebs, well, they're gone. And he said, come to think of it, the little rats that would come in and rifle through my papers and make a mess of things have left. But kind of the way he said it, I said, well, John, were any of these your pets? And he said, well, I did enjoy the wolf spiders. And he said, but it's okay that the rest are gone.
Yeah, I don't have any spiders here either, since I married and have
oh, that's
plasma water
great.
everywhere.
And you don't have to spray anything toxic. It's just they don't like the environment anymore.
The same thing is true for flies in the summertime. We have no flies in our house because of all the plasma stuff we have around. And if one does get in, you'll see him one time, and he's looking for a way out, and they're gone. You know, I mean, it's just not a problem in the summertime, like it can be. And as far as the persecution by the current medical or anti-medical establishment, whichever you choose to call them, is a real factor that we all need to be aware of, especially us. We haven't given it a lot of thought because we feel this is something we should be doing, and if we get persecuted for it, it's only going to bring more attention to it, which it needs, because nobody knows what plasma energy is or what it can do, or that they have the ability to heal themselves with their own intention, which I'm still working on, by the way. But lots of other people have stronger, much more viable intention than I do. And so we need to be cognizant of that, the fact of the authorities not going along and the big pharma being behind it all. The medical community wants to have nothing to do with it, and you know that it's hard to deal with, but we just have to relax and let it take its time and let it take its own path.
From a practical standpoint, one of the things we've done is we have a trust, and then we have a PMA, which is a private membership association.
Yes.
So anybody who purchases anything agrees at the time of purchase that $1 of the purchase goes to their membership, and any other purchase, $1 goes to the maintenance of that PMA. And what they have to do as members of the PMA is to use, enjoy, and if they wish, to share the plasma energy with others. That's all that's required.
You see, a private membership association is what the American Medical Association is. It's what the American Veterinary Medical Association is, the American Dental Association, and the Bar Association are all private membership associations.
So that's what we've done from that standpoint, and we'll just say that we've Tommy Lee down in Texas called it plasmerized. We've plasmerized the place. And I think setting that dome effect, I talked about how effective it was in Dominica. Yeah. If you didn't hear me talk about that, go look at my blogs. And the man who had a jar of plasma water in his parents' garden, and it had been there for, he'd been working on their garden for a couple years. When Hurricane Maria hit the island, destroyed 90% of Dominica, it did not touch a leaf on his parents' garden. Nothing happened to their home within a 30-foot perimeter.
Wow.
Outside the perimeter, the tool shed was demolished. The vegetation looked like winterscape. There were no leaves on the plant. They completely looked dead. And so there was a protective dome effect around that property. And that's why I've suggested to people, put this around your property. And,
can you also spray like the walls of the house?
Sure.
Sure.
House?
Yeah. We spray it everywhere. We live in a
I bet you do.
field of plasma energy.
Well, I kind of get a kick out of the people who have no ears to hear. They don't know that plasma energy is sloshing down the street as I walk up and down the streets of town. I figure, let's see, 33 feet? Yeah, this is good. Philea?
The other thing I've done is sprayed books that I'm reading.
Oh, sure.
And just the cover of the books, and it makes it a much more enjoyable read
Oh.
as well.
Nice, nice.
What I sprayed also was the chair that my clients sit in.
Very good.
When I go
yes.
to test them an hour later, they don't need plasma water.
Nice.
And I also sprayed it on the headband that I put around their head. I soaked it with that and let it dry. They don't need the plasma water after they've sat there for about an hour.
Yeah.
I put the plasma water on to test to see the percentage. It's way down, some 50%. Within about 10 minutes, it's 90% that they still need the plasma water.
Uh-huh.
If I test it without, they need it 100%. But if they've sat in that chair or had that band on them for any period of time, the need drops.
Nice.
How could you
It's
use it
amazing.
in your car?
I have a
Spray
jar
the
of it.
seats.
I have a jar of it in my glove compartment.
Me too.
You do?
Yep.
Just the base water?
I took the peace patches and I have one in either door and one in the center console. And a real quick little side story about the peace patches. There was a real ruckus in our town because the police went to another town and arrested some people. You cannot go from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. In the process, they injured someone who had nothing to do with what the arrest had to do with. So everybody was in an uproar about the mayor and the chief of police. And I went, you know, I think I'm going to address this a different way than go screech at City Hall. So I just went down and put some pads under the rocks. And then I went to the coffee shop and tucked one up under a table nearby where they always had morning coffee. Well, within a month, the chief was gone, and within 6 weeks, the mayor had resigned. Now, I don't know if my patches had anything to do with it, but I kind of like to think they did.
It was no longer a good energy match.
Along with the wolf
Exactly,
spiders.
exactly.
Did you send some
We
to Washington?
we better
Yeah,
get
yeah,
organized to leave.
When you put the energy in the river, did you put the vials in?
I
or did
poured
you
the
just
water.
pour water?
I just poured the water in.
Water, okay. I was curious.
And it's going to spread, you know, from wherever it is. Probably don't ever need to do it again, but it's
Wow.
just kind of like we do it. I like to do it every year in
Yeah,
the spring.
That's great.
Yeah.
Do you have a vial to get the body alkaline so we'd stable cancers and whatnot?
That's a good idea.
You want pH?
Well, I think the
alkaline one.
balance, you know, you're looking for alkalinity, but the go ahead and
Not that the
the CO2.
CO2 and zinc combination
CO2 and zinc.
is the one that we use for skin cancers,
Okay.
and that's the same one that was used to expel a baseball-sized breast tumor from this woman.
Wow.
And they showed the photographs of it. They're online
Is that
somewhere.
just spritzing or just
Patches.
everything? Patches?
Patches, one on each side.
Amazing. Oh yeah, you said
one
two
and a
and
small.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, to make it move.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Thank you.
Angela was talking about the CO2 and all that. It's in the first aid kit. So I would suggest getting a first aid kit so you can make
And
Oh,
it's also in your plasma energy station.
Right.
But like I said, you've got to reverse engineer if you want the individual components, or you can just simply get the first aid vials.
So,
Right.
a good question about when you take water and put it in your water bottle to carry around with you, can you put essential oils in there?
Sure.
And what about, a number of us have Mirin bottles, the really dark purple bottles that you put the water in and then put it out in the sun for a while, and then the good energy of the sun goes through, but not the energy that you don't need. Can you do that with the water?
You can do anything you want with it, but I'd experiment and try it and see what works and what doesn't work, because of the clear plastic is what we've always used, and I have no experience with the dark purple. I've never used anything like that, so I can't answer that question.
Right.
I'd say experiment and see, find out. This is a very flexible system.
Sounds like it.
You're not ever going to hurt yourself with it. It's a balancer. It's not an overwhelming thing, and it's you can't get overdosed. There's just no such thing as overdose.
Right.
You know, we might want to create a research club or organization where we meet like 4 times a year or every other month or something and share all of our ideas and try them out, and it will multiply everything that we're doing manyfold, and it would be very exciting and fun. What do you think?
And what's really good is when people send me testimonials, and I get a lot of them in emails, and I'm finding as I'm answering emails, I'm setting them aside in a document. Now I need to catch up a bunch of them and put them on the testimonial site, and I just call them Q&As.
Yeah,
You know,
right.
question and answer, question and answer. So, and I do carry solid color water bottles with me, but I'm not making the plasma energy. At that point, I'm just drinking it.
Right.
Oh.
Yeah.
Is it okay to drink it in a stainless steel?
Yeah.
It is, okay.
Yeah.
So do you have
What was that
anybody,
question?
To
do you
drink
have
it in a
anybody
stainless
that's
steel.
assisting you in doing this research, or that knows what you're doing, or any other people that are dabbling around, so to speak, in what you guys are doing?
We kind of stepped
No.
out of the box on this one, and so everybody's kind of following a more rigid format. Would you say?
Though there are people around the world who are experimenting and using plasma energy, nobody that we know of is doing it the way we are. There's a lot of people who are making energy machines that cut down your electricity bill, that you hook up to your car to give more gas mileage, which I have found don't work. And they're using it in a lot of different ways, but nobody that I know of is doing what Lynn and I are doing.
Yeah, the reason I asked that question is, you know, you guys are doing something that's really good, and let's say, hey, I hate to bring this up, but let's say you had a car accident on the way home, you got hurt, and you couldn't do anything for a couple of months or something, what's gonna happen to your business and your research, and
It's
who's
gonna
gonna carry it on?
it's gonna languish because there's nobody.
Nobody's helping
that-
you out, huh?
That's why we all need to keep it
Yeah.
alive.
Right.
Our sons are busy, as younger people are,
Yeah,
and don't really have the interest or the time to do it.
yeah. Okay, I'm just curious.
Good question.
Time
Thank you for
it.
coming all this way.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much,
Thank you. Wonderful.
and thank you for being here.
So for
And
the
thank you,
gloves,
thank you, Thalia. This was just lovely.
Yes.
Yes,
well,
thank you.
Yeah.
Well done.
Thank you.